The return to the global stage. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It has been quite a journey since we first began discussing the shifting tides of global economics. For those of you who have been with us, this channel since the beginning, all the way back to 2010, you know that we have been tracking a specific evolution for over a decade. To our 3,000 new subscribers who have joined us recently, welcome to the fold. You are joining a conversation that is years in the making. Today, we aren't just looking at the headlines, we are looking at the realization of a decade-long prophecy. Back in 2010, the global landscape looked very different. When we first began talking about the rise of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the mainstream financial media was, to put it mildly, skeptical. They called it a marketing concept or a loose affiliation with no real staying power. But if you were watching this channel back then, you knew better. We saw the structural shift. We saw the move towards a multipolar world. And today we are going to look at how that 2010 vision has become the 2024 reality. The 2010 skepticism versus reality. Let's take a moment to look back so we can understand exactly how far we've come. In 2010, the world was still reeling from the 2008 financial crisis. The dominance of the G7 was unquestioned. When the BRICS held their first formal summits, the narrative in the West was that these five nations were too different, politically, culturally, and economically, to ever form a cohesive bloc. I remember the comments on our early videos. Many people argued that China and India would never cooperate, or that Brazil's economy was too volatile to sustain long-term growth. The expert on television said that the US dollar's hegemony was so absolute that any talk of de-dollarization was nothing more than a fringe theory. Fast forward to today. Those fringe theories are now the primary drivers of the international diplomacy. The BRICS have not only stayed together, they have expanded, with the inclusion of new members like Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. We are seeing a bloc that represents nearly half of the world's population and a massive share of the global GDP. The mechanics of the shift. So what changed? Why were the skeptics so wrong? And why did our long-term thesis hold up? The answer lies in the infrastructure. While the world was focused on short-term market fluctuations, the BRIC nations were building a new development bank. They were creating alternative payment systems. They were establishing bilateral trade agreements that bypassed traditional Western intermediaries. This wasn't an overnight revolution. It was a slow, methodical decoupling. For those of you who have followed my analysis over the last 14 years, you'll remember when we discussed the first seeds of the continent, reserve arrangement. At the time, it seemed like a minor technicality. Today, it is the foundation of a financial safety net that allows other nations to operate with a level of sovereignty that was unthinkable in 2010. We are now seeing the BRICS pay system moving into pilot phase. We are seeing oil being traded in currencies other than the greenback. This is just a trend. This isn't just a trend. It is a structural realignment of how the world works. Why this matters for your portfolio. Now I want to speak directly to the investors and the strategic thinkers in our audience. Why does this history lesson matter for your future? It matters because the old world rules of diversification no longer apply. In 2010, a global portfolio usually meant buying a new European stock alongside your American holdings. Today, if your strategy doesn't account for the rise of the global south and the institutional power of the BRICS, plus you are essentially flying blind. The expansion of this bloc means that new corridors of liquidity are opening up. We are seeing a massive shift in where the world's commodities are flowing, and more importantly, how they are priced. If you are still relying on the 20th century model to predict 21st century markets, you are going to be left behind. We spent the last decade preparing for this. We've looked at the gold reserves, we've tracked the central bank digital currency developments, and we've monitored the diplomatic shifts in the Middle East. Everything we discussed in those early videos has led us to this specific inflection point. Addressing the new viewers. To our new viewers, you might be wondering, why is he emphasizing 2010 so much? The reason is simple. Context is everything. In an era of 30-second sound bites and reactionary news, it is easy to get caught up in the outrage of the day. But wealth and stability are built on long-term trends, not daily headlines. By looking back at our 2010 projections, we can validate the framework we use to analyze the work today. The world today. This isn't about right for the sake of ego. It is about having proven map to navigate an increasingly complex global economy. You've joined this channel at a pivotal time. The transition from a unipolar to a multipolar world is no longer a future possibility. It is a present reality. Over the coming weeks, we are going to dive deep into what this BRICS Plus era means for energy, for technology, and for the future of the reserve currency. To conclude this conversation, as we wrap up for today's look at this decade-long evolution, I want to turn the floor over to you. For the veterans, were you following the BRICS story back in 2010? Do you remember the skepticism we faced when we talked about these shifts? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments about how your perspectives has changed or stayed the same over the last 14 years. For our new subscribers, is this focus on long-term geopolitical shifts new to you, or have you been feeling these changes in your own sectors? I've pinned a comment below asking a specific question about the 2010 outlook versus today. Please jump in and let's get the discussion started. Your insights are what makes this community one of the most informed on this platform. In our next video, we are going to break down the specific impact of the last round of BRICS expansion and what it means for the upcoming fiscal year. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust, and thank you for being part of this journey since 2010 or since today. I'm Ro for The Real Shift. Please like, subscribe, and share this transmission so the others can get the opportunity to be educated on something like this. And once again, we appreciate your time. Have a nice day.